Welcome to the project.
Woo! Oh, hi! I didn't see you there. My name is Beckett Izeki, here with the Progressive Social Reform Group. I'm here to talk about the transformations of Indian societies. First off, let's talk about forced relocation. Many Native American groups were forced and uprooted out of their homes and forced to go onto reservations. This is incredibly sad. See, this is segregation done by the US government in the form of the Indian Appropriations Act. They thought that it was in order to protect the Native Americans from the growing encroachment of whites moving westward. In reality, many of the people thought, oh, the Native Americans here are just savages, they're beasts. In fact, they are not allowed to do any of their old rituals and religions due to this act. Brian, stop laughing. See, it gave money to relocate tribes from their homes onto reservations. But, in reality, they made it so that if Native Americans left their tribes for money and gave tribe lands to the US government, that they would be given free land and money. I was just admiring this art here. It's pretty wonderful, right? Anyway, back to my story about the Native Americans. See, people sometimes wanted equality. It was not all people who just wanted them all to go on reservations. See, for example, Helen Hunt Jackson wrote a book called The Century of Disorder, which revealed all of the horrors of Native American life. She worked for the Women's National Indian Association, or the WNIA for short. She helped get a petition signed to get education to free for any Native American child, and 160 acres of free land to any Native American who promised to work it, as well as just give up their land of their tribe. See, the government heard that plea and was like, yeah, but actually no. Instead, let's sign the Dawes Severalty Act. It was much crueler. Without going into the details, it sounds pretty nice. Just if a person leaves their tribe, they will get 160 acres of land, but their tribe gets destroyed. All of their religion is just cut down. Everything they've ever worked for is just destroyed, and they have to become a quote-unquote white man. See, this actually was horrible because most Native Americans did not take this opportunity. In fact, most of them just stayed on the reservations, and the Severalty Act just served to take tribe land away from the tribes. After the Battle of Little Bighorn, all of the survivors came, and the leader, Bigfoot, surrendered to the 7th Cavalry. However, even though they had surrendered, they were all gunned down. Hello, classmates. My jungle quote is, "This mass has gone into the trap," or something like that. But really, I was talking about Native Americans instead of meat or whatever the actual book was about. See, Native Americans were the mass and the trap is the reservations. See what I did there? See you next time, guys. Bye.
Oh, wow, I didn't see you there, buddy. Just finished up my masterpiece. Check it. It's beautiful, ain't it? Alright, let me set that aside real quick. Now I'm here to talk about the social reform era in New York at around 1890. A major person in this reform could be named as Jacob Riis. He took pictures. He took pictures of people who were less fortunate, let's put it that way, and lived in the slums of New York. He took pictures of them in the night, usually, and he used flash powder to capture these pictures. The pictures kind of look like one of these here. Let me grab it real quick. Here we are. Now can you see that beauty? Buddy was a genius of a kind. So Jacob Riis then showed these pictures of people living in the slums to more fortunate people who had money and wealth. And these people got very involved in the reformation of the slums to try and clean them up and better help the people that live there. And this is where some of the white ducks come in, because without Jacob Riis, the knowledge of the slums being very poor and filthy and just, atrociously gross, then the white ducks wouldn't have swooped in there and scooped all the poop away and all the unsanitary stuff. Yeah, that's about it for now. I'll catch you later. Greetings from the outside. I must have called 1,000 times. Alright, let's forget that. My jungle quote comes from chapter 23. I'm about to read it to you because I couldn't memorize the whole thing. Many of these professional medicants had comfortable homes and families and thousands of dollars in the bank. Some of them had retired upon their earnings and gone into business of fitting out and doctoring others, or working children at the trade. There were some who had both their arms bound tightly to their sides and padded stumps in their sleeves, and a sick child hired to carry a cup for them. Alright, no, let's talk about that real quick. Now, this kind of relates to the section I did earlier, because people in New York were at the time were living equally. Some of the people in the slums were living like just awfully. They had like a leg, and they lived off that leg. They would just shovel stuff in their mouth, and then other people, like the higher people, like the more money, more wealthy people, they were just rolling in it. Like they'd have people pouring oil on them. But my man Jacob Riis showed how the people in poverty lived, and this actually really helps. And the quote really connected to that because of it showed the two different classes.
Oh, hello there. Welcome to my lair. I studied Theodore Roosevelt today for my social reforms. Theodore Roosevelt was a president that was a great man, and he wanted the best out of people. He acquired better working conditions and pay. For an example, that is the miners. He was a man of efficient government, and he really set forth on fixing social problems as soon as he could. He had a new idea of government. No, not really a new idea, but new nationalism, which means active president with strong federal government. He wanted to really enforce that in his terms of office. But due to his get-to attitude, he was also responsible for the FDA, the Meat Inspection Act, and the Hepburn Act. But along with those acts, he was also responsible for the new Reclamation Act of 1902. This here picture is my primary source of what the new Reclamation Act of 1902 did. See, this is beforehand. Beforehand, there was all a bunch of arid land that they couldn't use for farming in the West. And then afterwards, boom, this came along. Well-productive farming land in the West. Due to that stuff, U.S. became a really good place. After all that, he also came up with the Reclamation Bureau, which added dams and canals, which we all need to, get around. Dams, canals, water, buddy. But Theodore Roosevelt's reign came to an end at the end of 1912. 1912 was history's belief of the first modern presidential election. And the president that won that election was, you guessed it, Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson. Yup, that's his name. See you next time, boys and girls. Well, hello there. I read this amazing book called The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. Recommend you read it sometime. But what I really got out of this book was a great quote. It goes like this. And we shall organize them for the victory. We shall bear down the opposition. We shall sweep it before us, and Chicago will be ours. Chicago will be ours. Chicago will be ours. Chapter 31, page 413. You see, ladies and gentlemen, what I got from that quote reminded me of Theodore Roosevelt. The man didn't like opposition, and he will do whatever he can to take them down and be the greatest one he can. He will make it for himself and will be the greatest.
Hello there. I'm the last part of this video, and I'd like to take a moment to talk to you guys about knowledge. See, in 1890, only 4% of the population's youth was actually in school and educated. Now, as Tai Lopez and everyone should know, knowledge is power. And basically, if only 4% of people are in school, then no one's getting any knowledge. And that means no one's going to be able to work, properly and, do stuff with that. So, to resolve this issue, there was a lot of governmental involvement in more educations, in increasing education. And by 1930, they significantly increased the number to 43%. Pretty big increase for that amount of time. Now, I'd like to move on and talk to you guys about Theodore Roosevelt. Now, basically, this man saw an issue with the environment because of all the advances in technology. No one was really looking out for it. So, he decided, you know what, I should be the man to look out for it. So, during this time period, he decided to establish the first national park, Yosemite. See, this was taken in 1923, and this was to discuss the regulations about the park and preserving nature. This was effective because, well, it preserved nature. It did its job. Now, for the last and final part, I'd like to talk to you guys about the jungle. And more importantly, I'd like to read a quote from it, from chapter 10. But there was no place a girl could go in Packingtown. If she was particular about things of this sort, there was no place in where a prostitute could not get along better than a decent girl. See, this really does remind me of the evil, the social evil of this time period. See, there was a large amount of prostitution and sex trafficking during this time. And no one really cared about it until a certain point where it got out of hand. It was all just mainly a local level of a problem. See, basically what happened was the government created the Mann Act and other things like that and really cut down on prostitution in social environments. And this was effective because, well, it stopped pretty much most of the prostitution during this time and gave women, better chances to do other stuff.
Whenever you're ready.
Becca, are you ready to tell us about
I guess we'll see.